Hello there and welcome back to my channel. Lucidspark is a free digital whiteboard tool from Lucid that is a possible replacement for Google Jamboard, which is being retired at the end of 2024. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through a basic overview on how to use Lucidspark, as well as share some pros and cons to consider when using it as a teacher. In order to get to Lucidspark, you can head to the website lucidspark.com, which will be linked for you in the description box, or just head to Google, type in Lucidspark, and it'll come right up. Now for the cost, Lucidspark is free for educators when you sign up through the Lucid for Education Learning Suite using your school or district email account. Even if you are not an educator, you can still create a free account that will allow you to create up to 3 editable boards, and you have access to some of the basic features like text, shapes, emoji reactions, and some basic visual activities.
We are all participating in mandatory fun activities.
From there, you can choose to upgrade to an individual or team account by paying on a monthly or annual basis. That will unlock access to some more premium features, upgraded storage, and some other added benefits. You do have access to these using a 7-day free trial, but you have to provide credit card information upon signing up, so just something to keep in mind. Speaking of which, it is very simple to sign up. Once you are on the website, just click the button that says sign up free in the top right corner or anywhere else you see it on the page. That will allow you to create your free account and get started. For mobile options, there are apps for both Apple and Android, which I will have linked for you in the description box. However, it does appear that these apps are only accessible if you have one of those upgraded account options, which if you have a school account, something that your school has purchased through a subscription, you may have access to these apps. Otherwise, if you're using just the basic free educator account that you personally signed up for, or a free account in general, you're not going to be able to utilize the apps. You will need to utilize the web browser version, but the good news is you can always pull this up in the web browser on your mobile device. There also is a Google add-on available through the Chrome Workspace Marketplace, which will be linked for you in the description box. If you do install this add-on, it will be visible in that side panel within the applicable Google apps. So for example, within Google Slides or Google Docs, you will be able to use that add-on to add boards directly to that file. And if you're within Google Calendar, you will be able to attach Lucidspark boards directly to calendar events. Now let's move into an overview of what the website looks like. Your home base is going to be this documents page. And if you look, it does mirror Google Drive. So if you're familiar with Google Drive, it should be very easy to start utilizing this. You have your files listed under My Documents, and if you have created any folders, you will see those displayed as well. So for example, I can right-click, choose New Folder. We're just gonna call this Example Folder, click OK. And then you will see I can allow edit or view access to the folder, share it with whoever I want to have access. But if I go back to my Documents, I now have this folder as well as those individual boards. I can create new boards using the new button. From here, I can choose between Lucidspark and Lucidchart. Lucidspark is going to be your basic visual whiteboard, whereas Lucidchart is more so geared toward creating flow maps and charts, things like that. Now, because this does mirror Google Drive, I don't think I need to go over it in too much detail, but there are a few features I wanted to point out. One aspect of Lucidspark that is different than Google Drive is you are not able to assign colors to folders. So you can create the folders to stay organized, you're just not able to change the color. Once you have your folder, you can open it, you can share the link, but if you click the 3 dots, you will notice there's no option to change the color. However, there is that starred option just like Google Drive. So if you click the star, it will then add it to your starred items, which are visible on the left-hand side. And you can always click it again in order to remove it from that section. Same thing goes for those individual boards. If you hover over it, click the star, it will add it to your starred items, and you can click the star again in order to remove it. One other thing I do want to bring your attention to on this page that is completely different than Google Drive is the Join ID. If you click the New button, you can create a new board from here as well as a new folder, but you also have this option to enter Join ID. This allows you to enter a 6-digit code in order to join in on another's board, but we're going to come back to this later on in the video. Let's go ahead and jump into creating a blank whiteboard. There are a few different ways that you can do this. First of all, you can click on templates and go ahead and select a template and start directly from there. But if you navigate back to your My Documents, click on New, Lucidspark, you also have the option to choose from template right here, as well as create a blank board, which is what I'm going to select. The last option is to actually type in lucidspark.new right in your address bar, and it will automatically open up a blank whiteboard. Now, once you open up that blank whiteboard, you will see that templates window displayed. You can add these in at any time. So for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and exit out. We're gonna go through the different features of Lucidspark using this kind of top section, and then we'll go through the left-hand side. Starting at the top, this first button is just gonna take you back to your My Documents. The second is going to be your file name. So this is where you can click in order to rename it. So example board. Next, you will see the status of how your board has saved and whether it's available to be used. So changes saved means I'm good to go. I could close out of this board, bring it back at another time, and all of those changes will be there. And then you have your basic search button. Next is going to be your menu. This is where you're gonna see the most options. Once you click on it, you can always convert a Lucidspark into a Lucid chart. So if you start with a whiteboard and realize it's turning into a flow chart, you can always switch over to Lucid chart. But you have some of your basic options. You can create a new board, you can insert from other documents or images, but I'm gonna show you another way to do that as well. You can export your Lucidspark from here. So your options are to export again as a Lucid chart, as well as a PDF, PNG with transparent background, JPEG, and then some SVG files. You can publish your Lucidspark from here, duplicate it. A lot of these are kind of those standard menu settings. But again, I want to bring your attention to the parts that might be most useful for you, and that would be your board settings. So I do recommend the first time you use Lucidspark, go ahead and set these up to your preferences. So if you click on Open Board Settings, you have some different options here. For example, you can choose to have an unlimited canvas, or you can actually designate a specific size. So if you are wanting to maybe turn this whiteboard into a printable worksheet that your students can fill out, or something they can glue into a notebook, you might want to go ahead and turn off that infinite canvas. And then you might want to select a standard size such as letter 8.5 by 10, and you can choose between portrait or landscape. And there's some other options here as well with your margin, so you can get it set up exactly the way that you want. You also have the option to change the background color. And then there are some other settings you can play around with in terms of the grid that you see. So if you don't want that dot grid, you could have lines or just no grid at all. I do personally really like the dot. You also can have objects snap to that grid. That means they'll kind of better align themselves versus being all loosey-goosey all over. So it really just depends on what you want. Spell check, you could choose to have on or off depending on how you're utilizing the whiteboard. You can choose to show notes and comments. And then you also can show line connections and line jumps. So again, I recommend setting that up from the get-go. That way you have it exactly the way that you want it. Next, you have those undo and redo buttons, which are pretty standard. Moving over further to the right, you have a timer. This will allow you to set a timer and have it displayed on the board. You can type in the specific time that you want, or you can use these little buttons in order to add it quickly. And you can choose to have sound on or off. So for example, I can set a 1-minute timer by clicking the +1 minute. Click start. From there, I can pause or stop. What's really nice is you can actually close out of this, and then you'll still see that timer going real small up here, and you can always click to expand it. But I'm gonna go ahead and stop that timer, close it out. You also have a voting button. From here, you can name your voting section. So does pineapple belong on pizza. You can choose to toggle private voting on or off, and if you hover over the little eye, it will give you an explanation. So it says voter names will not be displayed within the interface, but may be otherwise discoverable. So depending on how you're using the whiteboard, you might want to keep that toggled off. You can choose how many votes each person gets, so maybe they just get one vote. You can have a timer if you want, and then you can give instructions. And then under advanced, again, you can go in and really be able to customize that to be what you would like. Once you're ready, click start voting, and then you can end it whenever you are ready for that. And then you can also be able to view the votes here as well. Next up, we have what I'm going to call some of the collaborator tools. If you click the drop down, if other people are currently on your board, so you have shared your board with others, some of these options will become available to you. So you can follow a collaborator, invite others to me, which we'll come back to, show cursors, cursor colors. So it's a really easy way to kind of keep track of who is on your board. Next up, you have the comment button. You can click the comment button and then click anywhere on the whiteboard in order to add a comment. Click comment and it will display. If you want it to get taken off, you can always exit out in order to hide it, or if you click resolve, it will disappear completely. But you also can use the keyboard shortcut C, and it will turn your cursor into that comment button, and then from there you can just click and add your comment. You also can view a list of all the comments by clicking that drop down, as well as tasks, and there are some filter options there as well, and you can also add additional comments using that plus sign button. Next up is a presentation builder. Again, we're gonna come back to this, but it will allow you to essentially create a slideshow right within the whiteboard. Then you have the video recorder. This will allow you to capture screen recordings right within the whiteboard, paste them on there, but it does utilize some third-party integrations, which once again, we will return to later on in the video. And then you have the share button, and this looks very similar to Google. You can add people in by email, choose their level of access, so edit and share, edit, comment, or view, or you can create that shareable link. So once you click on, you can copy that link. Again, you can change the level of access, but keep in mind, someone else does have to have a Lucid account in order to be able to view or edit your board. Now let's move on to that left-hand side. These are the main tools you will use when you are editing your board. This first button is just going to switch it to that Lucid chart, which we've already talked about. Next, you have your templates. So at any time, if you would like to insert in a template, just click that button. You can browse through. If you're looking for education specific, you can click on education on the side. I'm gonna view all next to K-12, and maybe I want to add in this worksheet. You can preview it by clicking the little eye icon, see it a little bit bigger, and then if you are ready to use it, just click on open. And from there, you can go in and customize that template, but I'm gonna go back to the board that I started with. I'm gonna close out of templates. The next button is your visual activities. These are really cool ways to keep students engaged right on your whiteboard. You can browse through some of the different options that are on here. They can be set up for different tiering activities, voting. So for example, is it a sandwich? This would be like a click and drag type of activity. So if I click on add to board, it's going to pop up right there. I can click start and it's going to launch that activity. So I might say pizza, not a sandwich. Hot dog, sandwich. Toast, not a sandwich. And then submit. And then from here, I have some different options as well. I'm gonna go ahead and click on back to board. Next is the import button. This will allow me to add in additional Lucid documents, as well as images, PDFs, text files, links, and even Figma, which if you have not seen my Figma overview video with pros and cons, I will have that linked for you in the description box. Then we have our cursor, and if you click on this, you'll see your different options. So you have your basic select, but you also have pan. So this is gonna allow you just to like scroll around on the board. You also have the option for a laser pointer. So you can click in order to have that laser pointer. It will disappear after a few seconds. And then you have freehand select. This is kind of like a lasso tool. You can click and drag to select everything in that area. I'm gonna go back to select. Then you have your text box. Again, pretty basic. You can just click anywhere on there and you have those basic font settings. There are a ton of fonts to choose from, but there are some, and of course you can change the size, the color, all of that. So type example text here. And then you do have the option to add a link, so you can always add clickable links to the text. Next, you have your sticky notes, and I love when you click on it, you've got all these beautiful colors. You can either choose a color and then click and drag in order to create the sticky note on the board and then type directly on it. You also can add what's called a quick sticky by clicking that sticky note button, typing at the bottom, and then when you click enter, it will automatically add in that sticky note. And of course you can go in, resize it, change the color, and customize it as needed. Next is the shape tool. This is pretty basic. It works the same way on most whiteboards, but once you select your shape, click and drag in order to insert it. You can add in connectors. You can then add additional shapes or text boxes to those connectors. You can change the fill color, the outline color in order to fully customize it, and you can add text inside of the shapes. Next is the line tool. So again, this allows you to add in those different lines, whether they're straight, bendy, or connectors. You can also add in dividers, which might be really, really nice to kind of separate your board. And once you have that divider, you can change the color as well as the thickness. Next, we have some frames and some different ways to organize your information. We're gonna come back to this a little bit later on, but your frame will actually allow you to select certain areas and then provide links directly to it. But you also can add containers. So if you click and drag and add a container, what's really nice is you can title it. And then this is a really easy way to organize information, whether it's shapes, sticky notes, images, and so on. Next up are your cards. So if you click, choose Lucid Card, click and drag. This will allow you to add in titles, descriptions, and then this is something that once you have it on your board, you can then integrate with some other things with task management, planning out projects. I don't think it's super useful within education, but it's something that you can play around with. Then you have your image button. This will allow you to add in images as well as GIFs, GIFs, emojis, icons, and you do have some additional integrations there as well. You have your basic pen tool. This will allow you to draw right on your board. And this is really helpful if you have some kind of a stylus and you can utilize your actual handwriting. And then this does scroll down, so don't get distracted by thinking the tools end there. You can scroll down. Next up is the AI tool, which you can utilize to generate ideas. We're gonna come back to that. And then any other integrations you may have. If you click on the More Tools button, you can actually customize this toolbar by clicking and dragging elements over, such as breakout boards. You can put them on there, and then you can also rearrange those different tools in an order that makes sense for you. Next up, I want to talk about some of the pros, especially within the realm of education. First off, the Jamboard importer is now available for Lucidspark. This will allow you to add in Jamboard files to Lucidspark and maintain those editable capacities before Jamboard closes down at the end of the year. So in order to import a Jamboard, you are going to log into your Lucid account. In the top corner, you're going to select New, hover over Lucidspark, and choose Board Import. From there, you're going to select Jamboard, and you will need to authenticate your Google account. I will say I had some difficulty with this. We're going to come back to that under the cons, but in theory, from there, you can just select your Jamboards and import them right into Lucidspark. Once you import in those jams, they should all organize under a folder within your documents for easy access. Another pro is the fact that that documents page is set up so similarly to Google Drive. I do think it makes it very easy to jump in and start using it. And within the documents page, you are able to set reminders to update files and get change notifications. So this is a really great way to kind of stay up to date on your files and make sure that things don't get lost like they sometimes do in Google Drive. I've seen some pretty disturbing drives in my days in terms of organization, but these reminders and change notifications will hopefully prevent that from happening. Speaking of Google Drive, another pro is that it does integrate with Google Drive, which will allow you to store your Lucidspark files in your drive and then integrate them into other files. For example, Lucidspark does integrate with Google Meet, so you can actually create and utilize boards right within a meeting. You can also attach it to Google Calendar events, so that way if you plan to use a virtual whiteboard during a meeting, you can already have it attached to the event and everyone can have access to it. And you can insert boards directly into Google Docs, Google Slides, and Google Sheets. Another pro is that it does have that infinite canvas, which will allow you to just utilize as much space as you need. But I love the fact that you can go in and also constrain it to a set size if that's what's going to work best for how you're using it. Lucidspark also has some great keyboard shortcuts, and if you're using it a lot and you can memorize these, it makes it much faster to navigate. Plus, I mentioned being able to customize that toolbar, which makes it just that much more user-friendly. Lucidspark also has a marketplace of integrations that you can go in and be able to browse. Again, there's a lot that may not be applicable to education. They're more businessy, but you can at least play around with them and you might discover some new tools that really work for you. Some other pros are a lot of those tools that I mentioned when we went through the different parts of the whiteboard. First off, you do have that invite others to me button, which will bring everyone to the same spot. So as a teacher, if you have students on your board, that could be super useful. But individuals can also choose to follow collaborators by clicking a button, and that can be helpful as well for group work or partner work using Lucidspark. There also are some built-in communication tools, including comments and a chat feature, which is really handy, especially if students are using this in group work or you're trying to communicate with students through the whiteboard in maybe a more discreet way. You can leave comments with feedback, or you can leave chat messages to the entire class. That video integration tool is a really quick and easy way to capture parts of your screen. So you could record directions for an activity, insert it right into your board without having to go through a bunch of extra steps. But keep in mind, these are third-party integrations. So for example, if you use Loom, if you don't have an upgraded Loom account, which I believe you can still get free as an educator, but you're gonna have certain limitations with using those.
There's no limit to what I think I deserve.
There also are breakout boards. Now, I don't have access to these because it's only for those enterprise accounts, but in theory, they will allow you to essentially break students up into groups. They will each have their own board, and then you can sync them all together at the end for students to be able to share their work. So if you do have an enterprise account through your school or district, that will be a super handy feature. And then that presentation builder that I showed you is a really easy way to create a slideshow directly from your whiteboard. So you can add a slide and just place it anywhere on the whiteboard in order to capture what's there in that screen. But you can also kind of build the slides from scratch. So you can create a slide on a blank area of the board and from there add text and images. You can present directly from Lucidspark using those slides. So it's a really easy way to kind of capture or recap information at the end of a lesson, but you can also send it to Google Slides. It takes a few seconds and you do have to give it access to your Google Slides account, but from there, it will take those images and have them already inserted into slides. Similarly, I mentioned the frames. Once you place a frame around a certain aspect of the whiteboard, you have the availability to share just that frame. So it's a really cool way to give students access to just part of a whiteboard or even to share it with families. And you also can export just that frame as an image or PDF, which once again makes sharing a breeze. And then there was that collaborative AI, which works very similar to AI that you see on other platforms, but it's a great way to generate ideas. You can use it to sort sticky notes into categories and even select multiple sticky notes and have it summarize the ideas. So that could be a really handy feature at the end of a lesson during closing. Another pro in general with Lucidspark is there are over 450 ready-made templates that you can utilize, including mind maps, dot voting, brainwriting, Venn diagrams, flowcharts, and they're very easy to insert into a board. But what I think is even cooler is the fact that you can create your own templates and have them saved. And when you create a template, you have the option to allow others to lock or unlock different elements, so you have a lot of control over it. The final pro I want to highlight is the Lucid for Education resources page, which I will have linked for you in the description box, but you can also just head to lucidforeducation.com/resources. From there, you will see links to the template library, which we're going to come back to, but you also have video tutorials, the editor community, teacher-built mini lessons, asynchronous trainings, which are self-paced PDs on using Lucidspark, and there even is a certification course that you can complete. If you scroll down on the resources page, you can find templates grouped by subject, which is really helpful. If you teach math, you can find math toolkits, but there's also ELA toolkits and word walls and some great templates that will really save you time as a teacher. Speaking of which, if you click on that template library, which you can also get to this using a direct link as well, which will be in the description box, but it's lucidforeducation.com/assignments. This is a great way to browse some of those very specific education related templates that might save you time in trying to recreate something from scratch, or just spark your brain with some new activities that you could incorporate into a lesson. But as with most things, where there are pros, there are cons. I think a very big con when it comes to Lucidspark, the free account is very limited. You do not have access to a lot of features. And if you have a free account, they're gonna sucker you into getting that free trial just to get rid of the notifications to upgrade, because they got annoying very quickly. And yes, I went ahead and signed up for the free trial and upgraded just to get them to be gone. Similarly, any collaborators, so anyone you are inviting to have access to your board, have to have a Lucid account. And that means you can't necessarily share boards with families or students unless they have accounts. And in order to make student accounts, you need to have it set up through your school, so it gets a little bit messy. Another con is that Jamboard importer, which I mentioned, got stuck for me. I don't know what happened. It could have been something wrong on my end, but I tried several different times, and every time it just would keep asking me to give it permission to my account, but then it would say it had permission, but then it would ask me to select the account again, and I never got actual access to my drive to import the Jamboard. So maybe it's because it's still new. I am hopeful that that will get resolved, but if you experience that as well, just know you're not alone. But even if you do get access to it, Lucidspark has said that you will have to re-authenticate once, I believe every hour. So I do recommend like batching and doing all of your Google Jamboard imports at one time, so you don't have to keep going through that process. But if you try to do too many, it can really slow it down. So maybe choose like chunks of 5 or 10. So it could be a little bit of a lengthy process. But again, it does give you that editable access to your Jamboards, which you will no longer have at the end of the year. I will also say some of the education templates are a little limited. For example, if you click on timelines, there's only one. However, you will notice they are trying to expand the number of templates that they have, and they're even inviting people to submit their own templates, and that might be something that interests you as well. But I do want to close this out with just some possible uses for Lucidspark in the classroom. I've already hit on a lot of them in this video, but digital whiteboards in general are great tools for brainstorming or brain dumping with your class, being able to organize and synthesize information. You can utilize it for collaborative group work. You can have students design their own whiteboards to portray what they know on a subject. So there are a lot of applications to education. I do think overall Lucidspark is a great option, but I don't think it's my favorite, at least the way that I have been utilizing it. As of right now, I think I'm still team FIGJAM with Figma. I think it's a little more user-friendly. But again, if you have not checked out that video, it will be linked for you down in the description box. But that is the SparkNotes version of Lucidspark. Am I proud of myself for that? Probably a little too much. If this video was helpful for you, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you do not miss any future videos. Share this out with any of your teacher friends who you think might benefit from it as well. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. As always, thank you for watching. I love you so much. Don't forget to put your positive pants on, and I will catch you in the next one.